Hi, everybody. This is Asim Kapoor, founder and chief architect of Ark People Solutions, coming to you from the Rove podcast studio at Rove Downtown in the beautiful Dubai. Before I kick off this particular episode of ARKcast, I wanted to thank all our listeners and our viewers for continuing to regularly tune in and listen to our conversations. And thank you for sending in so many different ideas of topics that we should cover. To be honest, today's idea and today's topic is based upon your feedback, and I hope that you will enjoy this conversation. We all work in a highly competitive environment, right? We all know that the pandemic has created an environment which really pushes everybody to the limit. Businesses have had to flex like never before, and whilst mostly all businesses did have plans of constant review and revival and restructuring and everything, I think the pandemic has just fast-tracked everybody and pushed everybody to make the changes even faster. However, given the challenges that everybody faced, the businesses still need to perform. Businesses still need to deliver bottom-line results, and businesses still need to deliver shareholder returns. And therefore, performance still remains one of the key focus areas. And for that, today, I have a guest with me, Sam Eid. Sam is a passionate executive performance coach and speaker. Sam is certified practitioner and life coach of NLP, mindscaping, access consciousness, timeline paradigm, and hypnosis. With a career that has spanned over 2 decades of mentoring and recruiting, Sam is someone who's obsessed with exploring human behavior, success strategies, and motivations of learning for people. So Sam, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Before we kick off, would you like to tell us a little bit more about ourselves so our viewers get to know you a little bit better?
For sure. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Sam Eid. I'm a performance coach, and my history in the corporate world goes back all the way about close to 25 years ago. When I left, I was raised in Canada, came over to the UAE, and got into the glamorous world of advertising.
Right.
That really caught my attention. And ever since then, I broke in basically trying to find my way and until I got into production.
Right.
The production arm of advertising, where we produce the ads and the radio commercials and photography and what have you. And from then on, basically, I started to be what's called, grow into a body of what's called a producer.
Right.
Okay, an agency TV producer. And basically what that means is learning how to spot talent in the right places, being a very highly effective communicator, because you're constantly working with a whole bunch of people, from creatives to client servicing to clients directly sometimes, and of course different, putting together different logistics. So I've constantly found myself working with so many different people that have different attitudes, behaviors, moods.
Right.
And I was in the advertising scene for working across about 5 global agencies as a TV producer and head of production regionally. So I was blessed and fortunate to go and travel about 42 different countries around the world.
Wow.
Filming in different places, meeting different people. And after about 18 or 19 years in, that's when I needed to change, because everything was taking its toll. The pressure, the stress, and constantly having to keep thinking about different people, where do I put them together, if they merge with each other.
Right.
And I wasn't essentially living my own life.
Right.
I was great at what I did, and I'm very happy about advertising. It's very exciting. But there was this, everything for them, but not for me, okay, so to speak.
Right.
So it was fulfilling in terms of career.
Right.
But what was happening is there was a buildup, like a pressure cooker.
Right.
Happening, and it catches you off guard. Okay, and this is all the workings of what happens in the unconscious mind on a subconscious level.
Right.
And there came a point where enough was enough. And that's where I dove into the world of neuroscience.
Right.
To learn, obviously, coaching, and through coaching, several modalities underneath it, like hypnosis, mindscaping, neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP as people know it.
Yes.
And a whole bunch of other stuff as well in the world of neuroscience.
Right.
Just to really understand what was actually happening in my world, in my brain.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that was a complete game changer. That shifted all the power back over to me.
Right.
And that really kind of transformed me onto another level.
Right.
Where I took that forward, becoming a coach and more specifically a performance coach.
Right. I mean, I think that's a brilliant story in itself to kind of learn from. I mean, the kind of, the journey of self-discovery that you've kind of gone through and everything, because like you rightly said and pointed out, that I think many times people end up having very successful and fulfilling careers, but it may not be something that is internally fulfilling to them, right?
Yeah.
But since our topic today is all about performance and everything, so I'm going to zero in on that. So, like we were talking about the market scenario and the businesses and how things are right now. Performance is something that continues to be a key focus areas, because irrespective of the business environment, the market volatility and everything, everybody is still pushed to deliver, results and everything. But at the end of the day, the one that gets impacted the most are the people, right? Because if a business has to deliver results, I mean, it it has to perform, it just doesn't do it by itself. It's people who are enabling that, right? I mean, people are delivering the results, people are delivering the performance at the end of the day. And the kind of pressure that goes onto people, whether they are frontliners or whether they are leaders, are, I think, completely different from anything that we have seen, because the environment is something that we've not seen in the past, right? Mm-hmm. So from your perspective as a performance coach and everything, what kind of modalities or mindsets are driving people to actually deliver, not get burnt out, actually find something which, is a purpose in them and everything, and align all that? What's your opinion around that?
Well, first of all, I'm going to start off with a word that's probably not going to be like that much, and it's called greed.
Right.
Okay, what do I mean by that? I think what's happened is we've learned over the times, over at least the past, 50, 60, 70 years, that we always monitor the market. Okay, whatever the market does, we give it.
Right.
Okay, and that factory keeps running more and more. In the meantime, what's happening is these people in these organizations are constantly having to catch up, learn something new, give the market what it needs.
Right.
Because the market always wins, right?
Right.
But in this process, I think a lot of people have kind of lost themselves in this process, like on what's really important.
Right.
Now, if you notice, Asim, there are people that are greedy to the degree where it's not that they're selfish. It's just that in order for me to give you more, I need to be well first.
Right.
Like I need to be in a mental state of giving. Otherwise, I'm not really giving. It may look like it does from the outside, but from the inside, I'm not really, really fulfilled. And as they say, you can't give from an empty cup, right?
Correct.
So I think what we're seeing is a lot of people running on burnout, okay? And we're seeing a lot of different stuff happening in the world from mental health, from anxiety to confidence. Those are the top 2 or 3 things, from stress,
right,
chronic. That I see in clients separately in the therapy environment. And so when I say greed, I don't mean it in a negative sense at all. I actually mean find what you want first, be in that mental space,
right,
that will allow you to perform, that will allow you to give more value.
Right.
Okay? And the same thing goes with a relationship at home.
Right.
As they say, if things are not good at home, they're certainly not going to be that great at work.
Sure.
When you leave the house every morning,
yeah,
if things are not, on track there,
right,
then it's going to be on your mind,
right,
even if it's in the back of your mind, but it's still there, and and it has a weight,
right.
So when we say greed, we're talking about look after you first,
right,
and we mean that in every sense of the word,
right,
because it's you that matters. Because if you're going to actually give value for whatever it is you're doing in the business world,
right,
it's you. So are you good? Are you fully there or not?
Right.
That's really what it boils down to.
I think it's such a core important thing that you say, because at the end of the day, it's about what you want, what your purpose is, defining that whole thing that drives you, and then kind of taking that into your workplace. But again, whilst I think there are awesome things about the environment that we operate in and the market that we are in. Thankfully, it's a lot more buoyant than the rest of the world and everything. Aspects like, mindfulness, mental health, anxiety, addressing anxiety issues and everything are, let's say, to be honest, I've considered to be fairly fluffy topics and everything. Yeah. And isn't something that a business would really, or an organization would look at to see how that is impacting their workforce. Because everybody is so busy running behind targets and running behind delivery, and rightfully so, because at the end of the day, if you see, I guess, the kind of growth that this place or this region has seen, right, and Dubai has seen, it is based on extremely ambitious plans, ambitious targets, and a drive to actually achieve all of them, right?
Yeah.
So how can people really drive that performance in an environment which is fairly negative, or, puts different kind of pressures?
Yeah.
I think that's where the real burnout is coming at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to address it from a different angle.
Yeah.
If you notice, there's this saying that says, misery loves company.
Yes, true.
So when you're in a negative environment
Right.
where people are constantly having to complain about something,
Right.
talk bad in a certain way, oh, this is too much,
Yeah.
this is too much pressure,
Right.
then you normally see these group of people together.
Right.
And it's very rare that you see like the one or two that are actually doing the work
Right.
with all their heart, all
Right.
their passion, and they seem to have the most amount of energy.
Right.
And so, yes, going back to your point, coaching, no one likes to be told what to do. Okay, it's a very big thing, and certainly not like so-called leaders that are there right now listening right here.
Right.
So when we talk about coaching, it's this beautiful way of, as they say, imparting information.
Right.
Okay, simply through a conversation.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that's how
Right.
everything starts.
Right.
And so coaching is very forgiving and very malleable.
Yes.
In that sense.
Yeah.
Okay, as opposed to other trainers.
Right.
Okay, so coaching, the beauty of it is it's so much more of sharing, and perhaps I know something that you may not know to give it a shot. Okay, and see what happens.
Right.
As they say, first pretend, then pretend you're not pretending.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're actually doing something,
Yes,
right?
correct. Yeah.
So basically we found, going back to your point, you're right. Coaching is a bit seen in some circles, in many circles, a bit fluffy.
Right.
Oh, what is he going to tell me?
Right.
How am I going to change my life?
Right.
Well, the fact is, people have changed their life in an instant.
Right.
It's happened. Then why is that happened, and it's not happening there?
True.
With
True.
you.
True.
So I think it goes down to a personal decision, whether you want to learn something new and break away from this cycle
Right.
that you're in.
Right.
Because clearly things weren't working with you before.
Yes.
So try something new.
True.
I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
True.
True. We all know that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I fully agree. And I think the more, there's a lot that's been talked about. The fact that, okay, how today's leaders need to be less of managers and more of coaches, because that's the way to, drive people, engage them, help them, set them up for success, and so on and so forth, right? But the mindset always has been that, okay, I'm a manager. I know what needs to be done. I know it's how to be done. I communicate how it's to be done, and I'm going to evaluate your performance based on that, right? That's the typical mindset. But even if people, I think, or leaders, they want to shift that, it is not always that organizations have that openness of mindset to support a coaching culture. Because again, the fluff aspect, right?
Yeah.
So in my point of view, I think the more the leaders kind of change their mindset and everything, but if the organization doesn't change its own mindset about how it is, there will always be a bit of a loggerhead in terms of how we need to kind of move forward. In your opinion and your experience of having worked with so many leaders and so many organizations and everything, what is that optimum balance where an organization can see results delivery, but a leader is allowed to be a coach and not just a manager?
Yeah. Well, what we do is actually, we don't really mention coaching so much.
Right.
Okay. We talk about optimization.
Right.
Okay. So you want to get optimized. Okay.
Right.
So you're at one place, you're not so happy there, and you feel that you can do better.
Right.
Great. Okay. So we talk about optimized version, if you will, of making that shift.
Right.
Okay. Coaching is rarely used as
Right.
that word.
Right.
Okay. We first have to identify and acknowledge what is the problem at the beginning. Give me your top 2 or 3. So we do a quick audit.
Right.
And then we find out what's really eating at them.
Right.
And chances are it's usually something on a personal level, not so much on a business level, from a leadership perspective.
Right.
So they do want to change, increase bottom line, ROI, all that great stuff. But it all points back to the actual leader who's actually, wants to make that change.
Right.
Because the moment he starts to shift or she starts to shift, things down the chain, automatically the whole energy changes and starts to shift.
Right.
Okay. And it goes back to the level of investment that you want to put into changing yourself
Right.
as a leader, and then let that scale. And it shows. We're energy at the end of the day. Okay. So we don't talk about it in terms of coaching per se. It's all business talk. And it's just basically optimizing.
Right.
The market has all the answers. So if what you did before, like the previous months, didn't quite work out,
Sure.
then try something different.
Right. Right.
That's really it. But on top of that, which is probably even more important, is how do you want to see this result? Like, what's that result that you're looking for? And then reverse engineer it from there.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so a lot of people talk about positive change, more sales, but what does that actually mean?
Look like, yeah.
Yeah, what
for
does
sure.
it look like
Yeah,
to you?
yeah,
What does it feel
yeah.
like to you?
Right. Right.
Because everything that we are in terms of a drive is a feeling of an emotion.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's really what, a lot of leaders don't fully get. They can understand it to some degree, but,
Right.
they don't really feel what that vision looks like. I mean, Richard Branson just went up to the moon. Same
Yes.
thing with Jeff Bezos the other day as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? So basically taking action.
Right, right, and I think what you said was very right, because when it comes to identifying what is typically known as KPIs, right, key performance indicators, that's what organizations kind of thrive in, kind of a thing. You said, okay, we're gonna go with high kind of sales and double the revenues and this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, the path of reaching those. So you may well define them, because there's this whole mindset of SMART goals and make sure it's specific, measurable, time bound, and blah blah. But it's the journey towards those goals is something which is generally not very well defined, and definitely not very well managed by leaders as we go along. And by managing, I don't mean that, okay, that you should have every 2 months performance review, or, organizations say, okay, we don't do an annual review, which I totally agree. I think an annual review is a waste of time as much as an annual engagement survey is. But it's not about kind of saying, okay, we'll sit down every 2 months to have a conversation, or we'll have a review every quarter or something. It's about how do you get a mindset of an ongoing coaching, ongoing conversations, ongoing feedback, right? I mean, you and I both know there are times that organizations set in great structures in place or procedures in place, but the employee still waits for the end of that quarter or for the end of the year to get any feedback. Mm-hmm. And then when you give feedback, the person's like, well, why couldn't you have just told me that a bit earlier? I could have, changed myself. I could have, done something different and everything, right? So bringing in that mindset of continuous feedback, continuous coaching, continuous reminder and support of saying how we can achieve those goals is, I guess, what makes the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. When I hear that, the first word that comes to mind is lifestyle.
Right.
You got to make it a lifestyle. Which
right.
means that the way you go about your day,
right,
and speak to people, even your family,
right,
is in such a way where that type of mindset is always there.
Wow.
Okay?
Yes.
Even with your friend, your relatives, family, colleagues, whoever it is.
Right.
So there's really no need for an appraisal later.
Right.
Because you're really touching in every day almost.
Correct.
Okay, and several times a day sometimes.
Right. Right.
So when you take on that type of lifestyle, okay, and you imbibe it, okay, because it's great on paper. It's great that, okay, we're going to achieve this in sales.
Yes.
That's my mission. Those are my SMART goals.
Yes.
But if that plan is not internalized, then it's not going to be optimized.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And I like what you just said, that coaching should be a lifestyle, right? I mean, we think of it as an additional responsibility, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to make you a coach. That means, okay, you've got to go through this many hours of certification. You need to do this many hours of coaching and everything. So you actually put it upon people as an additional responsibility, right? Mm. And looking at it from a leader's point of view, sometimes I feel, oh, well, I already have so much to do. Then I get the additional thing of coaching coming on my head. Mm. And I think that's where the mind shift needs to change, to say it's not additional, it is the thing that will help you do
Absolutely.
it. So I just loved it when you said coaching is a lifestyle. I don't think, I've ever kind of looked at it from that point of view. But yes, if you kind of do it on a regular basis, wherever you are, it will just something that'll become internal to you as a common normal thing, right?
Absolutely.
But do you feel, you again, like I said, you work with so many organizations in this region and everything. are organizations open to that? Like, I mean, are they mature enough to actually look at a concept like this and really value it?
Yeah, great question. Actually, there are a lot of people that are not, okay? And so, and there are people that are, but the ones that do make that shift happen to either feel a certain amount of pain.
Right.
Okay, and so they have to shift to something else. They
Right.
don't know what that something else is,
Right.
but they feel something has to change.
Right.
Okay, which is great. And then for those who just don't want to do that, well, that's fine. Then they're not a client, so to
Right.
speak, to any
Right.
coach.
Right.
Because I'm not going to be able to help you if you're
just
not willing
Yeah.
to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And usually that happens from the CEO
Yeah.
or the top-down decision maker.
Right.
And that's what happens. It's a cycle where there's what we call a psychodynamic loop. In order for me to give you that help, which you're going to get on your own,
Right.
you need to be open, willing, or teachable.
Yes.
And
sure.
we call it
Absolutely.
a teachability index.
Absolutely.
From 0 to 10. How
Sure.
teachable are you?
Sure.
So if you're willing to actually reach there,
Yes.
it will require a high degree or a level of investment from your time in terms of time, energy, and of course, finance.
Sure. And I think what one of the biggest thing that I feel is a detractor to that, and I guess perhaps it's a two-way sword, or double-edged sword. There is always the appetite for quick results, right? You always you implement something, you want to see results now, right? You kind of not willing to say, okay, I'm going to kind of get into a program, we're going to work on it over the next 2 to 3 months, and then, in 6 months' time, you will see that, oh my God, that's too late already kind of a thing, right? So that's half the year gone and everything. Not kind of understanding that perhaps that's kind of setting things in place for the longer run for it to be successful, right? So one is the appetite for short-term kind of results and quick turnaround. And second, I think perhaps is the understanding that or the mindset that if you get into coaching, it will take a long time to get results. Sometimes, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, coaching can deliver results fairly quickly, right? If done in the right way.
Yeah.
It can.
Yes, absolutely. I think it can be as instant.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of a physical, like change.
Yes.
Okay. In a leader.
Yeah.
But in terms of actual results, there are some things that do require some time.
Right.
To
Correct.
see.
Yes.
Now, I would argue, I think coaching is actually the quickest
Right.
way if you really want to, optimize.
Right.
And get further faster.
Right.
Because, like I said at the beginning, coaching is very forgiving. It's very malleable. It's very plastic.
Right.
And by molding it the way you'd like to see it,
Right.
assuming that you're open enough to actually embrace it,
Right.
will mean that you get there, finish line quicker than other people.
Correct.
And that's the beauty of it.
Right.
When you talk about hypnosis,
Right.
it's basically how you see the world.
Right.
So if we work on this together,
Right.
you can basically look at it and shift it and tilt it the way you'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Because internally, that's what's actually happening.
Correct.
In terms of what does achievement look like to you? And as you know, achievement, success means different things to different people.
Right.
But if you honestly ask yourself sincerely, that could actually take shape and manifest if you know what to do inside and
Right.
how invested you are
Right.
in making that change.
Right.
There's a lot of people that we do see that will have this question, well, Sam, this is going to take some time.
Yeah.
I know I
Yeah.
have this issue.
Right.
I said, well, how do you know and can you prove it? They said, no, that's what I feel. It takes 10 sessions.
Right.
I said, really? Who said that?
Yeah.
I said, that's what I think.
Yeah,
Because
correct.
I have a real bad issue.
Right.
And I'm like,
right.
I see, okay. Now, what would happen if we actually solve this together in like 3 sessions?
Right.
How would that, I don't believe you. Okay, well, you don't have to believe me. Just join me for the ride.
Right.
And things start to change fairly quickly.
Yeah. True.
Same thing with the word, I'm just going to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
When I tell you coaching, automatically people will listen and conjure up certain images, feelings, fluffiness,
Yes.
softness.
Absolutely.
Complete waste of time and money sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. They're right.
Yeah.
But for the ones that really want to make a shift,
Right.
anything goes.
Right.
And anything can happen fairly quickly
them.
and fast.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. That's
Sure.
the speed.
Yeah.
That's so fantastic.
True. No, I mean, for me, I firmly believe, and having been through some of those experiences myself, I think, and I constantly bring in the organization angle into our discussion, right? Because, people yes, they need to internalize and they need to kind of see what works for them. But at the end of the day, everybody works within a structure. Everybody works in, and however simple or straightforward organizations may want to keep their structures, at the end of the day, there is a structure, right? Yeah. And having a structure brings in the mindset of performance management rather than coaching, right? Because it's like, okay, I need to, we need to showcase that we delivered X, Y, Z, and it's all about managing performance. So if you didn't perform, I'm gonna write it up. I'm gonna write you up. I'm gonna kind of put it on your file. I'm gonna start disciplinary procedures and so on and so forth. So we tend to become punitive very, very fast rather than looking at saying, how can I positively support somebody to actually realize perhaps where the gaps are and then work on them? Because like you rightly said, the action to change something starts with first the realization of saying, okay, there is something wrong. And if once I know it, then 90% of the time I should be motivated to correct it. But most of the time, unfortunately, the way structures are set up, nobody takes that time to actually positively support you. I mean, have you seen that as well in your experience?
Yeah, true. Well, it gets a little bit tricky because when we work with organizations, there are people, mostly all the time, that want to sabotage that setup.
Right.
Okay. Because for different reasons, we don't want to get into them all, but there's different agendas, and we understand that.
Right.
So we start off with an audit, okay, typically from the top down, because let's face it, you want to go to the decision maker.
Right.
Okay, and then everything will flow.
Right.
Okay. So along that journey, there are people that want to sabotage it.
Right.
Okay, that's the way we're wired.
Right.
Okay, and it comes from a survival mechanism, okay, because they want to keep things the way they are.
The way they are, correct.
Now, some people in the organization are very comfortable.
Right.
And things are going well for them and their department.
Right.
But for the other departments that are struggling,
right,
they have an issue.
Right.
So they want change, but the one who's comfortable doesn't.
Right.
So there you have it. But when it comes from the top down, typically things start to move and the wheels start to move fairly quick.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so change is exactly that. You could change now if you want, but you need to set the example. So you need to be the one to start with that one thing you want to start doing. Because once that you create that into a habit, everything starts to flow, people start to notice, and then all of a sudden you're setting an example.
Right.
So I always tell people, you start with you. Forget about everyone else.
Right.
Same thing with a family structure or business structure. Start with you.
Right.
And then you set the example for your wife, for your kids, and then at work, for your colleagues, for your reports, whatever it is, your subordinates.
Right.
You be that example first. And start with something small.
Right. And I think that so nicely summarizes the fact that we are always very quick to blame the external environment, right? Oh, I can't do this because, of this. I can't do this because XYZ didn't agree, or I can't do this because my organization doesn't allow me to do that, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about finding that one thing that you can start with that change, and then it will flow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to add something, if I may.
Sure.
Asim, I think there's something to be said about the market feedback.
Right.
Okay, the other person or the other entity.
Right.
The market, as they say, never lies.
Right.
If they don't like something, they don't like it.
Right.
It's very clear. And what we have in coaching is something called cause and effect.
Right.
Where you're always at cause. So that means it's always your responsibility. So if you're putting something out there, then you're going to get some form of a feedback.
Right.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And this feedback is very, very important.
Yeah.
So going back to your point on why largely the organizations think coaching may be a little bit too fluffy or not for them, I think it's also the job for other great coaches to say, how can I actually bring what I have to offer, which you highly believe in and passionate about, in such a way, in a marketing way, that's so enticing, so promising.
Right.
So it's also on the onus of coaches, from my view, because if organizations are not biting on and they want to take on this thing, I think it's upon us as well to actually bring out the advertising in you, that marketing person.
Correct.
How can I market my services better? Because I know what I do, I love what it is, and I know and prove that it changes results, gets results. So I think it's upon us to know also how to market. So I'm a great advertising guy, marketeer, before I am a coach.
Sure.
Because I know what I've got is groundbreaking and mind-blowing.
Yeah.
How do I actually make you see that? True.
No, that's brilliant, because I fully agree. I think it's about how to kind of make, if organizations are iffy about the whole thing, It's about how to kind of then showcase to them that, it will give results. It will give you what you want and everything. No, I think brilliantly said. So, I mean, from your point of view, let's say if we have a leader today, and he wants to become a great performance coach, let's say, right? He wants to make that shift. What would be those 3 key takeaways that you would give to him?
Well, first of all, going back to the initial question.
Yes.
What would you like to work on or modify or optimize?
Right.
Okay. Write it down. Top 2 or 3.
Right.
Okay. You may even have 1. That's absolutely fine.
Right.
And then number 2, seek out good quality coaching. Do your research, but seek out a good quality coach.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That will show you and teach you some of the inner workings, which I call a discovery section in my program.
Right.
Where we teach them how you function.
Right.
And why you habitually do what you do.
Right.
And how we can tweak that.
Right.
To allow it to help serve you. And number 3, share it.
Right.
Share it. Share it with as many people as you want. Start with your wife, your kids, your maid, whoever.
Right.
But share it.
Right.
Get it out there.
Right.
Some people will, love you for it, and some people will pay you highly for it.
Right. No, for sure.
But with all these tools, they're, how do I tell you? It's amazing.
Yeah.
So first, find out what it is that you want to fix or work on. Number 2, seek out a good quality coach who can actually show you the program and understand the biology, the physiology, the chemicals, everything that's going on in your body and why you do this. And number 3, once you learn that, performance is easy.
Right.
You start to share it.
Right.
It's like a vibration that emanates from your body.
Right. Right.
And people respond on an unconscious level to this energy.
Right. Right.
Okay. It's not so much me telling you what to do, but me showing you and you feeling it at the same time.
Right. Right. But from an organization's point of view as well, I've always felt that one of the most underutilized resource of any organization is its leaders. Not in terms of what they have to deliver in their job role or their job functions or targets and everything, but more in terms of how well they are brought in to develop talent within, right? Or become growth facilitators for their own teams, for other teams and everything, right? So at the end of the day, if let's say I kind of bring in coaches to help my leaders, eventually I would want them to embody that and drive it further down within their own teams and everything as well, right? What can organizations do to have that open mindset?
Well, I think if it starts off as a conversation. Let's start off just a simple conversation.
Right.
Okay. How's business?
Right.
How's it going? If you had to choose, what would you do differently?
Right.
Just starting off as a conversation.
Right.
Okay. It's not a coaching session. It's just a simple meeting, coffee meeting, whatever it is, just to get a conversation flowing from there. And if it's sincere enough and people at the table are not just ticking boxes, then surely you will actually proceed together on that journey to start the wheels getting in motion. Okay? Yeah. It all starts off with a conversation. Right. Some of my best clients, I've actually started off with a simple conversation without coaching at all.
Right. Just a conversation.
We're either talking about a game, and that game between 2 teams sparked a coaching chat, if you will.
Right.
And it's funny how that works out. Same things with like marriages.
Right.
How's your marriage? And that's just a simple chat, which again funnels down to a coaching discussion.
Right.
So everything actually pours into that, bowl of what can I do better? Right. Now maybe things are happy with you and everything is great. Then keep it as it is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Power to you. Yeah.
No, well, great. Thanks a lot for your time, Sam. I think, half an hour went by in a jiffy. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And for all those of you who are listening, I think as what ARK People Solutions believes in as well, it's all about simply getting there and starting a conversation. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll be back with more episodes very soon. Take care.